there we go. All right. Thank you all for being here. My name is Anthony Barocas, and I am the Chief Gearhead here at StreamTek, and I welcome you to today's show. I will probably not be live next week. It's Christmas. Week after that, it's New Year's. So this will be the last show for 2025. So let's enjoy it. As always, I'd love to say welcome to everyone who's watching around the world. And if you haven't already chimed in, feel free to let me know where you're watching from today, because I am streaming live to Facebook and Facebook, although the second one didn't seem to take for some reason. It says I'm streaming to the StreamTek page, but for whatever reason, when I looked for it on the StreamTek page, it wasn't there. Go figure. Going to YouTube, thankfully, that's the anchor for everything. And I'm seeing stutter on my end. Let me know if you're seeing stutter on your end or if it's just my computer not displaying things very well. Also going to LinkedIn, and I'm going to Twitch. So if you want to try to find it on LinkedIn and Twitch and let me know if it's actually working in those locations, that would be great. I am not streaming to Instagram for the first time in a long time, and for whatever reason, I logged in on the same device. I am logged in every single time, and today when I hit the stream button, actually I'll hit it again, it says, at this time your account is not eligible to use this feature, which is interesting because I used it a week ago and then a week before that and months before that. So if you go to the StreamTek account on Instagram, you'll find lots of lives sitting there. But now apparently my account is not eligible. So they must have changed the eligibility requirements to do a live stream, which means they don't want my content. So fine. Let me know where you're watching from today. And as always, if you have any streaming questions, throw them into the comments. This is a dialogue. You are here. I am here. This is like live tech support. I will do my best to answer the questions. I know a little bit about a lot of different things, but I know that I don't know everything. And if I don't know, I'm not going to be like AI and just make something up and tell you that it, make it sound like it's true. I'm just going to tell you I just don't know. It's a really good question. What is the topic for today's show? I think it has something to do with the Osee Duet-8 ISO. It just came out with a 2.1 update that has some really good features in there. At least one of them is something that I had been asking for some time. So I'm very happy to see that, but other ones that I have asked for have not happened, but we'll go through those things. Go back to here. And we have Adelaide, South Australia watching. So it must be like, I don't know, late in the evening there or super early in the morning, maybe even overnight. Because the reason I am curious about the Australia is because I will be doing a show with Bird Dog later today. So if you are so inclined, I will be doing the X1 Advantage later today. It's my 4 o'clock, so it is about 5 hours from now. I will be doing this show there. Feel free to check this out and join me with that. Already, apparently, we've got questions coming into it already, which is quite interesting. That will be later today. And as always, you can check out everything that I'm doing over here on the StreamTek channel on YouTube. So lots of content there. And because this is about the Osee Duet-8 ISO, yes, I know that's a longer title. I just say Duet-8. You can come over here, and I have some very good videos to show you. Down here is the complete overview for the Osee Duet-8. I go through the entire menu thing, show you where everything is. Some changes, of course, today because there's new firmware. And then they released an update soon after that where you could put 16 inputs into the Osee Duet-8. So that's the 2.0 update, and today's the 2.1. So feel free to review those. The Osee Duet-8 video is also very good because you could just fast forward to that thing that you're trying to figure out now and be able to do it. If you are unfamiliar with the Osee Duet-8, it quite possibly might be my favorite little compact video mixer. Now, I say that, I have it here on the desk, and go to my overhead. I have it here on the desk. It's right here. This is the one we're going to be talking about. There's certain things that I would have loved to have changed, like I added my own labels over the top since they're printing on the top anyway, I had suggested, hey, they could just, make a slight revision to the printing and add more printing to the top so that you can know this is output 3, output 2, input 4, 3, 2, 1, microphone 2, microphone 1, USB 2, USB 1. There's your Ethernet, which I didn't label because there's only one. XLR 2, XLR 1. I labeled all these things so that when I'm leaning over the top, I could easily know what I'm plugging into. Because this one, like most devices, what they do is they just emboss the label black on black, and you need light cutting across it. You got to have a flashlight to be able to see what these things are labeled. And I just felt this was simple enough. And because they're already printing on the top, it's this top plastic. Should not be that difficult to do, but it hasn't happened. But this is a great little mixer for several reasons. One of the key reasons is it's HDMI and SDI. I have both HDMI and SDI cables plugged in here. Let me scoot it down a little more. Actually, let me go over here. I have both 4 HDMIs plugged in here, and I have 2 SDIs plugged in here. I have a USB camera plugged in here. I have audio jack plugged in down there. I've got an XLR jack over here. It's got 2 XLR inputs and everything. So this is, and there's a SD card slot in the front of it. So this is quite the little powerhouse in that, the SD card is over here, and they could print over here, the proper way to plug the card in too. The fact that you can play video from it, you can record video inside of it. It's got a recorder in it, and it's got a video player in it. You can have both SDI and NDI hookups. So if you have all SDI cameras, great. If you have all HDMI cameras, great. If you have a mixture of things, great. It also does 4 channels of NDI. So if you have network cameras, great. If you want to do SRT, great. It doesn't matter. If you want to bring in web sources, great. It's like a Swiss Army knife of live streaming, as well as 3 streaming outputs as well. Now, this doesn't do multicasting like people. I just did a show on the YOLO Box update, and one of the cool things with the YOLO Box is that you send one stream and then it goes to their servers and splits it out to 3 destinations, saving you bandwidth, making it more reliable if you have constrained bandwidth. This one, if you want to send to 3 destinations at 5 megabits each, that's 3 times 5, that's 15 megabits plus overhead. So you're talking at least 20 minimum. I would say you want to have at least 30 to do the 15 comfortably, because it's always going to expand and contract a little bit. That's what I would recommend. Whereas if you wanted to do 3 destinations with the YOLO Box at 5 megabits, you're only sending 5. So there's magic. There's different tools for different tasks. People ask me, what's the best whatever? And the answer is always, what do you want to do with it? That determines what the best product is. Let's say we got some hellos coming in here. LBC Columbus says hello to you as well. Good morning from Mississippi. Good morning to you in Mississippi. It's probably pretty cool up there. USA Earth. Got it. Zippy Scooter. Thank you, Zippy. Thank you for chiming in. Seems you got your audio issue resolved. The audio issue I had in the other show, oddly enough, it's something happens in the process. And because I cannot hear my stream that goes out into Restream, which is how I do these titles, since I can't monitor myself in the studio, I can't hear that. I do have a Director Mini, a Magewell Director Mini that I use for in-show titles, like this title right here is created in the Director Mini. So I can listen to the Director Mini right here, but this just tells me that it sounds fine in the studio. I can't monitor what's going out to the world because that's 20 seconds behind. And that would be rather discombobulating. So again, if you have any streaming questions, feel free to throw them in the comments. I will do my best to answer them. And they don't have to be about the Osee Mini, the Osee Director. I'll get it right. The Osee Duet or the Duet-8. I did not get the original Osee Deck, which was a smaller mixer. I got the one that does HDMI and SDI, the Duet. So I have the 2 Duets, and I'm most able to answer questions about those. But if you have a question about the Blackmagic or the Director Mini or YOLO box or something like that, throw it into the comments. We'll do my best to answer it for you. Anyway, to continue along with this, the Duet-8, it's got a built-in fan on it. It's on the bottom. And for just $7.99, you get all of that capability. Now, I'm going to go through their website here just in case you haven't heard about this and are curious. Their web is very good website. Tells you about it, even if they can't spell simultaneously in the English way. But this is one of the key things here. Wait for the finish draw. This right here, HDMI and SDI. You can actually use both the HDMIs and the SDIs. You can have 8 wired cameras coming into your switcher. But remember, you only have 8 total inputs. So when I say you can bring in 4 NDI, you have to give up one of the wired inputs to get the 4 NDI. You see how the NDI is only over here on inputs 5, 6, 7, and 8. So on each of these inputs, you can choose between all of these items. Input 7 will only be one of those items. That's the key thing. And it's a fantastic flexibility. It makes you wish you had more buttons. It really does. And the other thing that I really wish that they would do here, because input 5 can have both HDMI and SDI inputs connected, and you could also have an NDI HX there, and ready, or you could do a video player, on those inputs. On input 5 can have all of those things kind of lined up. And then you can go into the menu and cycle between them. And I had said, and this is one thing I was really hoping would come to fruition, but hasn't, is I was hoping that they would use the preview bus and sit there and say, oh, if I have 4 different things on my button 5, I could just hit this, just double tap it, and it would go to the next thing. Double tap, and it would go to the next thing. Double tap, and it would go to the next thing. Double tap, and it would go to the next thing. And because you have a multi-viewer in front of you, it gives you a fantastic multi-viewer, which is right here. As you can see, I've got it heavily populated. Anyway, I just wish you could just double tap that and not even have to go into the menu to switch. That would make it easier to have both SDI cameras and NDI cameras, or SDI and a video playback, and switch between them on these inputs quite easily. Oh, I want to go to video playback. Tap, tap. Now the video playback is there. Oh, now I want to go back to the camera. Tap, tap, tap. Now it's connected back to camera. That is something I hope the Osee, people are watching and they take that into consideration, because one of the other things that I had mentioned has been implemented in this software update, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm not going to take credit for it. There's a lot of people, and there's fantastic beta team. I'm not on the beta team. Fantastic beta team in the Osee group on Facebook. So you got 4 SRTs, 4 NDIs, 2 webcams, 2 MP4 players. Now remember, those are all in the same inputs. So you have to give and take. Do you want the 2 video playbacks? Okay, you have to give up some, then you only have 2 other inputs. So that's the caveat. They keep this slide, and I've said this before, you can bring in SRT and RTMP, and you can invite remote guests worldwide. Now, I want to clarify this because they haven't, in that it's not a true guest feature. They don't get a return feed. They don't hear the program with mix minus. SRT and RTMP are ingest only. So you're not bringing in guests where they're going to be able to hear the program and have a dialogue. They should say bring in remote feeds as opposed to remote guests, because I think there's a misnomer that when you say you're going to have a remote guest, like the YOLO box has a remote guest feature, and when somebody connects, they hear the program, there's a dialogue, they are part of the show as well as an input. This is not that. This is not Zoom. This is just bringing in a remote feed via SRT or RTMP. You've got ISO recording this thing. 8 channels of ISO recording in addition to the program record. Your XLR microphone inputs. So you can, you've got phantom power and without phantom power. You've got a web power dynamic overlay because you can bring in a web source. So you can bring in graphics from a web creation tool and just have them come in and have somebody else, even in another city, creating your web graphics for you, running a scoreboard or things like that. And then continuing down here, you've got 8 layers. I'm going to get into the 8 layers. That's a whole composite thing into itself. So you can see you can have multiple foreground, background overlays, downstream key 1, downstream key 2, and everything. It's quite powerful. But remember, you're only creating those layers with sources that you have built into the machine. So when you have this many layers, well, your downstream keys are separate, but your camera layer, your background layer, your other windows, those are all sources, so that when you go to this, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, got 4 sources there. So now you only have 4 more sources to cut from to get to this, because this is going to be using 4 of your sources. So that's one of the things. Remember, it's only 8 sources, not counting your media players and your downstream keys, not counting your downstream keys. Got a couple questions coming in. I got Duet-8 ISO myself, just did the 2.1 firmware. So far, no issues, and they have fixed some of the bugs I came across. Yes, definite bug fixes as well are in there. Mike Sabatini says hello from LaSalle, Illinois. Good to see you here this morning. And the StreamTek Steam Master SDI has that function where you can press and hold an input button to switch from HDMI to SDI and vice versa. That's cool. And I actually did a review of a StreamTek 2-channel mixer, which it's not much of a mixer if it only has 2 channels. And then if you're doing a chroma key, you're using both of those channels. So it's not a switcher then. It's more a monitor with extra capabilities. But I will have to look at this Stream Master SDI. I have not seen that one. Yes, that is, I think, especially in the fast-paced world of live switching, you don't want to dive into the menus. Menu diving during a live show takes you out of the mindset. You're not following the show if you're menu diving. So that is why I really love if they were to, do that. And I just, here's my live inputs. Because this is not live, I could just double tap this. And double tapping the preview bus or long holding or whatever does not have a secondary function right now. So adding that, I think, would be very handy. And of course, you get your mix, wipe, and cut over here. And we'll say hello to the bass guitarist in 1985 in Connecticut. Thank you for chiming in. As always, throw your questions in. What I've got lined up over here is the Duet-8 firmware 2.1. Now, they say after you load the firmware, and it's actually doing a firmware update is quite easy. You download the firmware, you put it onto an SD card at the top level, you turn the machine off, you stick the SD card in, you turn it on. It sees that there's firmware at the top level of the card because it checks the card out when it boots up. And then it goes into firmware update mode. It just does. And then the buttons on the top, these buttons actually turn into a progress bar. They all go red, and then it slowly goes green as it loads the firmware until it's done. Then it flashes and it reboots itself. Now, as you can see, they also say after the equipment is updated, restart it manually, turn it off and turn it back on. And then there's been a couple people who've had, like it didn't fully take or something like that. So they've also said to go and do a restore. Like basically you hold the left knob, you push it down for, a good 5 seconds, and then the whole thing shuts down and then comes back up. And that is basically clearing and going back. And so that anything you might have built out in there, that's going to go away, I believe. I don't know how clean it is. I don't know if it nukes all of your macros and things like that and you have to rebuild them. But that is something that people have recommended for those who have had certain issues with the update. They've also even recommended doing that reset, then doing the firmware update, and then doing the reset again. And that just keeps things clear. Lighthouse asks, so are you on 2.1 now there? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And actually, I did do a restore, and it lost my microphone settings. So let me turn input 1 on and input 3 on, and I think that's mic 2 on. I had these set up before the show. And supposedly now, if I go to 3, these are supposed to change colors, because as you can see, for input 1 through 8, mic 1 and 2, consistent with the audio meter, red means on air, and green means audio follows video. White means selected. So red means on air, which means that anything not on air should be not red. But technically, the audio mixer is independent of the switcher because I'm not doing audio follows video. Because of that, if I turn it on, it's on the air. So red just means that it's live. I don't want to mislead people and say that if now that the colors are here, what's not going to happen is, unless you've got audio follows video. So let me try that. Let's go to the overhead, and I'm going to turn input 1 is selected, audio follows video. Input 3 is selected, audio follows video. And now, if I go to 2, you see that input 1 has gone off. It's no longer red. And it's indicating the status change with the color. So if I bring my selection down to program. So now you can see they're both in audio follows video mode. And if I go to input 3, that's going to go red to let me know that that is hot. Everything that's red is hot into the program mix. That's basically what that means. And green means it could be hot if you cut to it. Dark means it's not in the mix, it's not on, there's no audio follows video, there's nothing. It's just dead, not being used. Hey, good to see you, Andreas from Corfu, Greece. Good to see you there. Had another question come in. I use a Behringer XR18, very nice, for audio inputs into mic's XLR, but with a 30B attenuator, XLR is mic level only due to hardware limitations. Yes, it is not a line level input. And when you go into the mic settings, you can see that it is not a line level input. It is the only balanced input into the mixer. So for the cleanest audio, especially if you have a long run from, say, the audio mixer is way over there and you want to run a mic cable over, you're going to get, you're guaranteed more cleaner audio with a balanced audio cable, which is what the mic cable is, but it's still a mic input. So you got to bring it way down to mic level from line level. If you don't know what the difference between mic and line level are, go to YouTube, type in difference between mic and line level. There's going to be 1,000 videos telling you about that. They are very, very different levels. And technically there's 2 different line levels too. There's professional line level and consumer line level, but I won't get into that. The color codes for the audio is helpful. It is. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate with the Osee group is that they've listened to user feedback. They have made it more useful in key ways. That's not about throwing more features at you. It's about making what you already have easier to use. That's not it's not giving you more functionality. It's not. There's nothing with the color codes, is no additional functionality. But when you look at it, you know more of what's going on. It's telling you more, and that is great. That's one of the reasons why I feel being able to double tap the buttons to switch, I think it's not giving me any more functionality that's already in here. It's just saving me from having to dive into the menu to change the input from one of the things to the other. Because like I was showing at the very beginning, wait for my computer, it's a little slow today. Those 4 inputs, 5, 6, 7, and 8, can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things connected to it. Now, realistically, you're not going to have all 6 things connected to it, but you might have an SDI input and an NDI input, or an HDMI and an NDI, and maybe a video playback, you know? So you want to cycle between those 3 things that are connected, that are set up and coming into the switcher. And it saves you the trouble of having to dive into the menu, which, if we go into the multi-view, you know, it's sort of like, oh, I want to change my input on input 5. Okay, let me go into the menu. Let me scroll down to input, which is kind of down at the bottom. And then I'll go to inputs, and then I'll go to input source map, and then I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to go input 5. And then instead of the NDI, let me change that over to, oh, I went the wrong way. This is how long it's taking to switch the inputs. And this is why I sit there and say, you know, if I could just double tap on the preview button, that would be great. And then you hit the menu and menu and menu and menu. There you go. And then now you could have changed your inputs over there. And that's why I feel, you know, it would be useful to be able to cycle through things over here. Play. Yeah, play. Why are you not playing? Oh, does it only play when I go to it? Let's try it. Media player 2. It's not playing. My snowfall has stopped playing. We'll see what happened. Yeah. Select that. There it goes. All right, so that is a media player. So that's a video playback on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Input 6 is my media player, so it's actually playing back a video file from my SD card. 7 is an overhead USB camera. 8 is NDI of my main camera. So this same camera right here is actually going through an NDI box and coming in to input 8 over here as NDI. Over here, inputs 4 and 5 are actually a PTZ optics camera I have over here to the left. One of them is SDI, and input 3, 5 is NDI. So it's the same input coming in, and I just did that to show you. Look at that. I'm coming in NDI and SDI. Can you see the difference in the timing? I can't. So to me, that says that NDI can be, you know, depending on your camera. Now, not every camera is as fast as this, but good cameras are going to give you that NDI signal on par. Way back there, you see a camera that's input 2. I'll bring that up there. Input 2, hello, input 2. That's SDI camera way back there. And here you can see the PTZ optics camera. Input 1 is HDMI in. Input 3 is HDMI in. So I got 2 HDMIs. I got 2 SDIs. The interesting thing is I have them all connected. I have 4 HDMIs connected, but SDI gets preference. So when you put it on auto, and you plug SDI in, it's going to automatically go to the SDI. You don't even have to really choose. So technically, if you just like disconnect it, it's going to fall back to HDMI. And that could be your switch, except it's kind of clunky. And so these 2 SDI cables are the 2 sources I was telling you about. You can see the Ethernet blinking away because that's my NDI input. You can see here is my UVC camera coming in U1. And then my microphone coming in mic 2, and then this microphone's coming in mic 1. And then over here, you've got your 3 outputs. You've got output 1 on the bottom, which is your SDI. Output 2 I labeled. Output 2 is the HDMI on top, and output 3 is always going to be, until maybe a software update might change this, but right now output 3 is only your multi-view, which is what you can see right here. So this is output 3, which is why you can see the cable is connected and it's coming into my other switcher over here. Actually, let me bring up 7, and you can kind of see my layout here. This is the Osee. This is how I'm talking into my computer. This is my audio source we'll get to later. This is the Director Mini that I'm switching the show with. And then over here, I've got my Blackmagic, ATEM Extreme. So I've got an 8-input switcher. And because this is already wired on the table and I'm literally only using it to switch what's in this box, I'm not using it for media playback. I'm not using it for NDI sources, things like that. Right now, this is doing a good enough job. I said that the Osee is, kind of my favorite little switcher like this. And that's because it's so functional. But I don't need functional over here, so I'm not using it as part of my show because I'm only using like one aspect of this switcher, which is I'm switching these multiple inputs in the right here. So I can, go to the overhead and show you this. I can go to this side view. I can go to the multi-view. I can show you the PC computer. That's what I'm using the switcher for. And that's really all I'm using it for. So all those other functionalities that are built into the Osee, all these extra inputs and capabilities are not what I would be using. It also frees it up so that when I have a gig that needs that functionality, I don't have to disconnect my studio. I just take this. Oh, good question. Good thing. No need for double click, just make a macro. Yes, this is a good point. You could macro all 8 inputs, but there's only 10 macros. So yeah, you could macro those particular sources that have multiple inputs. Yes, you could. Very good point. But if they made it in the preview bus, you wouldn't have to give up your macros to do that. People want to use macros to do other things. People want to use macros to switch out what's in a green screen in different angles. People want to use macros to automate functionality and switch different cameras. And they also, as part of this update, created a looping macro so that you can actually create a multi-switch that then loops by using a macro. So yes, you can use your macros, but I think macros are way more powerful than just toggling through sources. It would be, and then of course you have to set it, you have to record that macro selecting that item. So if you want to then select a different item, that's 2 macros for 1 button or 3 macros for 1 button. Whereas I'm saying have the preview bus do all of that. Good thought though. Thank you. Check your playback mode, set the single play instead of single loop. It probably is. That's a good point, and it's probably why it stopped. And if I go look at it again, it's probably stopped again. Nope, still playing. And I did have it looping at first, but then I did it because I had another issue, which we'll get to in a minute. To continue along, let's go back to our list of cool things that they changed. So we've got those, and for program and headphone buttons, white is the selected one. Recording function optimization. When recording automatically, the system automatically creates a new recording session in 2-hour chunks. Some things segmented every 10 minutes and things like that, but it's going to automatically segment after 2-hour chunks. And then if the recording is unexpectedly interrupted, it'll automatically save the file and convert the temporary temp into a playable MP4. So basically rewrapping the data that's already on the disk. So that's very cool. Panning direction correction, turning the knob clockwise moves the audio to the right, turning counterclockwise moves it to the left. That's just the way many people feel that the top of the knob indicates the direction we should be going, not the bottom or one of the sides. The stereo audio split function, and this is the one I had begged for. Oh no, the mono to stereo. This is when enabled, the left channel is assigned to audio channel 1. The right channel is assigned to audio channel 2. So if you are bringing in stereo audio on the 1/8 inch jack, you could actually split it out onto left and right channel 1 and channel 2. That's very cool. But then you have the opposite, mono to stereo duplication. And this is one that I found more often, because if you're using those little wireless mics, but you're only using one, and you have the receiver set to stereo or split tracks, then it's only going to be output into your mixer on the left channel or only on the right channel. Or let's just say you're streaming and you've got 2 people and you're interviewing. Well, those 2 people, you know, you're going to want to split, you're going to want to mix them to mono. You're not going to want them coming out on, this channel and then that channel and this channel and that channel. Although it could be kind of cool. It's really weird if it's reversed and she's coming out on this side and he's coming out on that side. It's just better to have it coming out in mono. And so that function, explain the macro looping. I can't. The macro function, the audio function that they changed is to come in here and say, oh, do I have this playing? Let me start this up again. There we go. Paused, play. And if we go into our menu, actually, let me come back out of the menu for a second. So you can see mic 2. I've got audio coming in mic 2, but it's only coming in the left channel. And it's only going out the program on the left channel. That's not what you want. You don't want to have just one channel audio. And I hear that much more than I would expect on YouTube. It's that people either aren't paying attention or they don't know that this is happening. So I'm coming in mic 2. So it's on, it's coming in a 3.5 millimeter port, it's coming in line level. So again, line level comes in the 3.5 millimeter port. We had the comment earlier about you don't bring line level audio into your mic input without padding it down. And they make hardware pads. You can just plug in a hardware pad and then jack it into the mixer and you'll be fine. You can bring it into the 8th, the 3.5 millimeter, but the 3.5 millimeter is not balanced audio. So don't do that. And if you do send balanced audio into a TRS, tip ring shield pin, you're going to be feeding that balanced audio signal into separate left and right channels because these are stereo inputs. It's going to get very weird because balanced audio is the same thing on both the tip and ring, but out of phase. So instead of both signals hitting your ears at the same time, they're actually out of phase. And what that's going to happen is if somebody's sitting in front of speakers like they're, an iMac or something like that, as you move your head, it's going to cancel out at a certain point because you're going to be getting two signals out of phase in your ears, and at the center point, they cancel. So that's a whole other audio issue as well. Anyway, line level coming in. But what they added down here, panning, you can pan it left or right, fader, preamp, delay, mono to stereo. So if you want to take your mono and make it stereo, you could do that. And then your EQ is at the bottom. So let's go back up to this mono to stereo. We're going to click on that, copy the left to the right, or copy the right to the left, depending on whatever you've got coming in. It's flexible, it'll do both. So ours is the left to the right. I'm going to select that. I'm going to menu back out. And now you can see that mic input is mono on both channels because it's copying what's over here and making it over here too, ensuring that what you have is coming out of both channels equally. This is not going to solve if you have two people coming in with two Rode microphones coming into the receiver, and the receiver is split. You can only pick left copied over or right copied over. It's not mixing both. It's not doing that. You're going to lose one if you do that. So if you're doing something where you've only got one connection coming in, like let's go here. Like I have one XLR input and coming from the house audio. I can take this and I can duplicate this on both channels, so I'm good. I don't have to worry about fixing it in post or everybody who's watching only having audio coming out of one side. I can easily do that right here in the mixer now. What it's not going to do is it's not going to take these two different channels and mix them to mono. It's not that type of audio mixer. I have one of those. I should go overhead. I have one of those right here. This will do that, but this one is not that. That's where my XLR is coming from. It's coming from this mixer. And as you can see, look, it's line output going into a microphone input. But I've brought my output levels way, way, way down. So that way I'm not overloading what's coming in here. Anyway, that is one of the really handy features, is that your mono to stereo duplication makes it so that if you've got, let's just say, a desk microphone and you're the announcer and you want to be able to like bring your microphone, me, on, or you got to push to talk or something like, hey, and now we'd like to welcome, da 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 da, whatever, that you can now duplicate to be in both channels right here in the mixer. That's new, and that I think is a great thing. They added output frame rates, proper support for 2398, 2997, and 5994, all of which are the NTSC and the filmic modes. Fade to black function is now available through the PC control software. Audio level quick reset using the knob. When an audio channel is selected, pressing the audio knob will reset the parameter and level and the fader and level parameters to default, which makes it really easy that if you're quickly juggling cables and stuff and things like that, and you want to, you know, it's like, I don't know where it was set, I just need it to be here. You could just tap the button on top. You just tap the audio button, like when you have it selected. So in 5, tap, now that is reset. Simple as that. And again, that's just repurposing what these buttons can do and adding an extra feature, tapping. Oh, wait, what if we double tap down here? But I belabor the point. Optimize web browser input. So this just means they tweaked how it's processed in the machine to reduce resource usage, increasing the output frame rate of your web browser. Added the macro loop function. So this allows, this is what the question was about, this allows automatically cyclical switching between inputs by creating a macro to do that. Added a border and corner radius function to multi-source windows. This allows circular windows, because now, as you can see right here in the Director Mini, I can put like little curves on the end, or you could curve it all the way down to circular windows, a circle in the corner of the person talking. And adding the border and corner radius function to multi-source windows allows, the radius and borders are adjusted individually for each window, which is way better than globally. You don't want to sit there and say, oh, any input I have is all going to be circular. No, my PowerPoint, I still want to have rectangular, but the person talking, I want to be circular in the corner. So that's great. Added a fan speed management adjustment. So if you're like me, in my video that I did for the GoStream, one of the things I noted was that I've got this little pad on top, and the very thin feet that it comes with kind of sunk into the pad, and it kind of suffocated the fan that's on the bottom, which is right here in the middle. So I just added, and if I move this out of the way, you'll see dots. I added little rubber feet to the bottom so that, you know, they'll indent because it sinks a little bit into this pad. You can now manually tell the fan, go high, you know, just go at full throttle all the time. So if you're doing a job outside and it's summer and you want to make sure that this thing doesn't overheat, you could just manually go into the settings and say, fan at full speed, just stay there. So you're keeping it as cool as possible all the time. Even if it does make a little bit of noise, you'll probably, you know, relish the fact that you're not going to have problems. Had a comment come in. Set the output fader to -16.5 will be unity for mic level, assuming 0.75. The output fader to -16. Well, my Zoom is not, doesn't have those. Oh, -16. Yeah, I got a -10, -20. Well, I have about this much space between -10 and -20. So I'm going to just put it in the middle of that. Might not be 0.16.5, but it'll be close. And then the other thing is, you know, you sit there and you listen to it as you're bringing it in through the headphones, so that as it's coming in, you can hear if it's distorting. Because one of the key things with a microphone level input is, if you bring, for those people who don't know the technical things, if it's coming in too hot, it's going to distort. It's going to distort on input. And there's nothing you can do after that. There's no further stage that you can do after that that will fix distorted audio. It's distorted. Now you can bring it down, but it's now quieter distorted audio. Once it's clipped on input, that's it. That's what you've got all the way through. And I have produced a video talking about microphone levels and making sure you get everything good. on the YouTube channel, which is right here. So you can come over here and say, microphone. So there's all kinds of videos about different microphones and microphone levels, microphones and live audio. So there's lots of different things you can find on the StreamTek channel. If you're interested in a particular topic, feel free to go over there. Use the little hourglass, the little search tool, and you can use that to find videos that I've already done on those topics. So like if you were interested in the Osee, you could click on Osee and all the videos that I've done about the Osee, including doing a switch within a switch using just the original Duet by feeding the USB out to the USB in. That's here as well. So those are all right there. Also, if you are so inclined, I will be doing a show about the Bird Dog X1 Advantage later today at 4 o'clock. You can find more about me at streamingmedia.com, including various articles I've written about the YOLObox Extreme, the Magewell Director Mini, and a whole series of all-in-one live production tools, including the Pearl and other things. SignTreek actually makes a guest appearance there as well. If you want to reach out to me directly, you can go at StreamTek.us. There's a little contact us up at the page if you're looking for consulting. I also created the B4 on Micro Four Thirds group on Facebook. So if you're looking to put big ENG lenses with a B4 lens mount on to Micro Four Thirds cameras, that's the group for you. If you're looking for live switching on a budget, I have a group for Teradek AirMix, which is a free app. It's been they no longer support it, but they made it available for free with what was formerly every paid option already included. You can go check that out. Teradek AirMix group. It's the unofficial because I just created the group. There's no official support for Teradek AirMix, although it did just get an update a couple months ago out of the blue. And then if you're so inclined, my sister has a website called 17 Seconds Studio where she does unique painting art up in Alaska. So go check that out at 17secondsstudio.org. And we will continue with our updates. Optimize the USB video output to resolve abnormal frame rate issues. And then as we talked about before, they fixed the bugs. PC software time, calibration fails, custom settings disappeared when restoring the default stream list. Screen tearing may occur when the output frame rate is set to 50 or 60, no signal output. Program limiter fails to take effect after being enabled. They also optimize the output frame rate for UVC and optimize the latency between HDMI and SDI signal inputs and the microphone inputs. So those are the bug fixes that made it into this 2.1 update. Below that, the 2.00 release note is where it now supports 8 hardware inputs. This was a big advancement because before it was like the Duet 4, where it had 4 HDMI and 4 SDI, but you would choose between those two for 4 inputs, and then you had a 5th input that could be NDI or something else. This one, the Duet-8, actually came out the same exact way. 4 hardware inputs, and then that 5th input for the Duet, not 8, the 4, was NDI or SRT or anything like that, or a video playback. But now you've got multiple of them. You've got 4 of them. That was the big thing here. Now that 5th input that was on the Duet 4 is now 4 of those. So you're going to NDI, 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 or USB, or media playback, or SRT, or all these different things. So a lot of people saw 8 buttons and 8 inputs and says, oh, I could do 8 hardware inputs, and that's not actually how it shipped. But the Osee team listened to the overwhelming feedback, and they actually made it happen. They made it happen so that you can use SDI, 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 HDMI, 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 HDMI. You can have 8 hardware inputs in addition to your Media Player 2 and your Media Player 1. You could do all of those. And that was a fantastic update that came with the 2.0 release. And they did it in multiple ways too. So, initially your HDMI and SDI were all on the same buses. Let's go back to that chart, which is here. Wait for it. Go back to that chart. It was initially 1, 2, 3, and 4. You had to choose between HDMI and SDI. And with input 1, if you chose SDI, that meant you couldn't use HDMI. Well, they created 4 different modes so you could actually spread these things across. You know, you could interleave SDI, HDMI, SDI, HDMI, and things like that, or put all your HDMIs first, or put all the SDIs first, so that way, if you still want to use NDIs, those are only available on inputs 5, 6, 7, and 8. That's the key thing. Those extra inputs are only available on 5, 6, 7, and 8. So you need to prioritize what 1, 2, 3, and 4 use. And they created a matrix so that you could have just HDMIs, if that's all you had, just SDIs, if that's all you had, or you could interleave them. So you could have 2 SDIs and 2 HDMIs and still have 5, 6, 7, 8 be all those other things. So that's what the 2.0 update really delivered. And again, this is a fantastic mixer. I really enjoy using this. I'm not much of a macro user, which is why I can't demo like, oh, you build a macro this way and you can go in here and set this and time this and do that. And I don't build a lot of macros, which is why I'm like, let's just make this bottom bus do what the macros do so that people don't have to learn how to program macros just to switch what's on input 5. That's my thought. But given that there are so many different things in here, and look, you're right, my input 6 did pause again. So let's go in there. A media player. No, not the media player. Let's continue down. Playback. And it's player 2. And I want to sing a loop. So that should, oops, multi, and here. Player 2 is on 6. There it goes. Now it should keep playing. Once I've got it going, it should just keep playing now because I've got it on the loop. Is it possible to backflash from 2.1 the previous firmware if 2.1 provides any problems? If so, is earlier versions downloadable still? Yes. And this is another absolute commendation to the GoStream team. If you're on the website, let's go over here to the website and let me show you this. The website itself, very well laid out, very simple. And let me move this out of the way. You can go over here to download. It's a streaming tool, so we're going to go to streaming and we're going to download firmware. There's a new app for the computer as well. Again, they tell you first thing, insert the card in the right direction, which I sit there and say, hey, since you're printing on the top right here, maybe print a little thing right here that shows you that. It would make sense so that you know the difference between the deck and the Duet. So the card goes in upside down. And if you had a little picture of it, that would help reinforce not only where it goes, but how it goes. So you come down here. This is what I just covered. I covered all these things. This is where you can download, but then it says historical version. So you can click on the historical version. So again, here's the 2.0 release notes, and there's the firmware download. There is a 104 and a firmware download. So you can download previous versions, and the update process is the same. There was somebody who was having a problem with the Duet-8, and they found that the USB made things a little bit more contrasty when they used the USB out. And so what they did was they went back a version in the firmware to a version that didn't have that. And so they were able to back up by putting this version of the software on the SD card, it'll automatically see that there is software on the card and load it. So that answers that question. And again, very well laid out. And the fact that they give you a change log for each of these versions and what each of them does, you can see it going all the way back here. So kudos to Osee for just being very open and allowing people, hey, here it is. You, for whatever reason, you want the older version, here it is. This is what it did. And that information is always there. Bass Guitar says, I'm not much of a macro person myself, but I know there are advantages to using them. I use mine for YouTube live streaming and to capture live bands performing. Yes, the macros are good when you want to execute multiple things at the same time. That's kind of really what a macro does. Like I saw this fantastic demo all years ago for the Blackmagic ATEM Mini. Now it only has one green screen keyer. And what somebody wanted to do is somebody had a green screen room with 4 different cameras, but everybody's sitting in the green screen room. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to change the background for each camera, which would be like a da 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 da, and you can't do it instantaneously, but a macro can. So they created 4 macros, and instead of switching on the switcher, they switched using Companion. And when they go to camera 1, what it did was it changed the background, the green screen background, and then cut to camera 1 so that when you went to camera 1, it was that view of the room. When you went to camera 2, it was that view of the room behind them. When you went to the center, person in the center, it was that view of the room behind them. And when you went to the far shot that included all 3, it was a different view of the room. And they did that on a device that was not made to do that, but they did that ultra fast process of 6 things by using a macro. What I'm saying about using the preview bus for is not that neat. It's like I manually just want to go next. I'm just next. That's all I'm saying. We have the man himself. I don't know what time it is. Well, you are probably 9 o'clock at night. Ingat. He is I would say the chief guru. Like I am the chief guru here at StreamTek. He's the chief gearhead when it comes to the Osee GoStream. And if you haven't checked out his frequently asked questions document, it answers all your questions and more. And he is the author of that, and he is, literally worth gold when it comes to helping the people who use the Osee Deck Duet and the Duet-8 ISO. So he is fantastic, super helpful in the group. And, feel free to throw even more questions in now that he's here. He could probably answer them. He's on YouTube. So if you're watching on Facebook, I'll have to bring your question up. But it looks like all the questions are coming from YouTube. And then the base says, yes, earlier firmwares are available, and yes, they can be downgraded. One of the interesting things I found is that when I upgraded mine, I was not able to get an XLR input to work. That's why I do have the audio coming in my 3.5 millimeter inputs. And that is, kind of interesting that, I fed it multiple different things, and what do you want for Christmas? I'm good. I appreciate that. Time off. I'm going to take 2 weeks off. I'm not going to do a show for 2 weeks. How about that? Osee versus Rode switcher. See, it's different strokes for different folks. And it's especially, this is a really good question now that Rode has added more NDI inputs, because I am a big fan of video over IP. Now, 5 years ago, I wrote a nice article for Streaming Media called All In on NDI. And in here, I've got cameras and 2 different switchers and headphones and all kinds of things, PTZ control. And I'm a big fan of NDI, which is one of the reasons I love the GoStream Duet-8 so much, is that it gives you 4 channels of NDI. you know, I wish those 4 channels were in addition to those other 8 channels, but that's asking a lot of a very small, under $1,000 switcher. That's a lot to ask for. You certainly can't even do that with an under $1,000 computer, because you're not going to be able to get 8 physical camera connected to a $1,000 computer or for under $1,000. And here they've brought 4 NDI inputs into an 8 input hardware switcher. And that is just super duper. But when it comes to Osee versus the Rode switcher, it's kind of a toss up. And I say that only because I don't know enough about the Rode switcher. And I am very excited by it. I love the way that it is really scene based, you know, and that's something that I have learned to do, learn to really appreciate using all-in-one switchers. Like when I do a scene with me going side by side like this. This is a scene created in my Director Mini with me, the background, the insert, the graphic at the bottom. That's a scene. Well, that scene is how the Rode switcher is sort of laid out. Yes, you can have your inputs, but more so you can have a whole bunch of scenes all laid out. And that is how I have really been working as of late. And it's why I love the all-in-one devices. And it makes the Rode like a combination between a straight input switcher and a scene switcher. Even though it still can't do titles, it still can't do animations and scoreboards and all that stuff. It's not an all-in-one device. It's not a Director Mini, and it's not a YOLO box. But between the two of them, I feel they're very comparable, but I can't really speak to the Rode only because I have not been able to get their marketing department to send me one so that I can really dive in and learn it, because you know, there's not the resources available for me to purchase every single piece of equipment that's out there out of my own pocket and then, you know, make these videos on them. I have to rely on the marketing departments where I contact them, you know, for streaming media, for whomever. And I sit there and say, listen, I'd like to review this. And then after I review it, like, you know, I did an article on the DJI wireless microphones. You know, and they were great. I used them at NAB last year and they did a fantastic job. I did a review of them and then I sent them back. And that's kind of how that goes. It's like I review something and I send it back. Unless it's an ongoing thing. So thankfully, Osee has seen fit to, you know, let me, you know, continue to have this, which enables me to then produce more videos about it over and over and over again. Whereas I can't do that with the, you know, DJI microphones because I don't have them anymore. But Rode has not sent me the switcher, so I'm not able to really speak from in-depth experience with it. I have not used the Rode switcher on an event. I have not done a live show with it going into all the different details like I have with the Duet-8, you know, I actually did 2 live shows on it, and those 2 live shows actually were, you know, put together into the overview, which is going to be right here. The complete overview video is a combination of those 2 live shows into a very fast-paced, you know, straight through, no viewer questions and everything. That right there, but it's an hour and 45 minutes long. And that is something that I would love to do with the Rode, but I just haven't had the experience with it. So I don't feel qualified to give you a real good answer, Osee versus Rode, but at this point I would lean Osee. The one really cool feature that I have seen with the Rode is that if you also use the Rode audio mixer and connect it to the Rode video mixer, you can have the audio mixer provide video follows audio. So if you run a microphone to person 1, a microphone to person 2, a microphone to person 3, a microphone to person 4, and then you've got 4 individual inputs, you can set the video mixer to listen to a tally provided by the audio mixer so that when Mary speaks on camera 1, it switches to camera 1. And then when Bob responds on camera 4, it switches to camera 4. And it does that without you having to do anything. I don't know, again, I don't know how in-depth it is, but the The biggest YOLO box has sort of the same feature. And in addition, the YOLO box, or I think it's the Extreme and the Ultra have this, where you can also set it where if two people are talking at the same time, let's just say they're arguing, you can cut to a third shot showing both of them. And that makes doing podcasts really easy because the show mostly self-switches. You know, it's following whoever's talking by showing them. If two people start talking or, you know, interrupting each other enough, it's going to cut to a wide shot where it would get a little hectic going back and forth. That's really cool. And the Rode has that. So if that's something, again, your needs help determine what product is best for you. You know, people ask me, you know, what's the best, you know, all-in-one switcher? For me, I switch my shows on the Director Mini. That's what I have entrusted my shows to. It's been doing my shows for well over a year. That's what I have chosen for me. But at the same time, I did a live show at an expo. I needed more cameras. I needed more video outputs. And I wanted to have a second person switching it. And for that event, I used the YOLO Box Extreme because it gives me two monitor hardware outputs. It gave me my, you know, multi-view. I was able to give a multi-view to a second person switching because I was also host. So if I'm hosting and I'm talking about things, he can bring up titles. He can like switch to other things and stuff like that. So I don't have to pay attention to that all the time. I had a second person switching. But if I'm in the show and two people are talking and I want to switch to a close-up, I had that availability too. And that functionality determined that I needed a different tool to do the job. Let's see. Alex says, I have the Osee Duet and it's one of the best with the new update. It is definitely a lot of capabilities. Not only mini jack audio can be split, but the video inputs too. Awesome. That's a good note. And they should put that in the description too. And he also notes that the circular windows can be of any size. So, you know, I said make them small, but, you know, hey, okay, if you want a big circular window, you could do a big circular window. This is, again, one of my favorite video mixers. I'm glad to have the opportunity to come back and revisit this thing. And it just continues to get more refined. And that is something I'm thankful for. I especially like when things are as bulletproof as possible, as reliable as possible. You don't want to have a product that touts a lot of really cool features, but then you're always hoping that it doesn't mess up the records. Lots of people are using this thing every single day around the world, and they are talking about the fact that it just does the job. And it's not the flashiest specification on the spec sheet, reliable, but it's actually the specification we need the most. And the fact that they're doing incremental upgrades, incremental, you know, functionality updates, you know, like the colored audio, making features more usable, not trying to like, hey, we're going to cram this other thing in there and we're going to do this whiz bang thing. No, it kind of is what it is. It was designed as this. I was amazed when they made all 8 hardware inputs, and kudos to them for making it work and keeping it as reliable as it was. And that is one of the things I think the Osee engineering team, you know, deserves kudos, is that they have put together a well-built product that does what it says it's going to do. You can't always get that with a lot of things. And that's something I feel that needs to have a higher value when people are looking at tools, is that, you know, is it bulletproof? And bulletproof carries its weight in gold. Why Osee team don't add one button like the shift button on the Windows keyboard to remove all preview buttons? Do shift button to do the preview function? You could, yeah, well, that again, they could, but, you know, again, that is changing the hardware layout, adding another button. different motherboard, different cast. That's a whole other thing. You know, add one button is a whole process. And if you're going to add one button, you might as well, since you got to redesign the housing, the motherboard, everything, you're going to do more than that. You know, you're not just going to just add one button. You know, and my suggestion for taking the preview buttons and making them double tap to cycle to the next connected input and double tap to the next input, and I would see it change on the multi-view. You know, so if I had over, you know, on input 5, you know, I've got over here that I have, oh, I have something coming in NDI, but let's just say I want to switch to SDI. I could just double tap, you know, my number 5 here. Oops, this one. I could just double tap my number 5 here, and it would cycle between the NDI and the SDI, or the HDMI, or whatever is, you know, going to be assigned to that item in the matrix. That's not adding another button, you know, because, you know, I guess Shift and 5 could do that. Shift 5, but there's no Shift button. You know, maybe they could change function into a Shift. You know, reprogram it that way, because this button already exists. And maybe function 2 is not necessarily assigned, and you could use function 2 as a Shift to toggle between the inputs like that. StreamTek hardware capable of future updates to allow different audio delay setting for each different inputs to keep from having to split the difference between NDI and direct HDMI. I don't know how you would split the difference, because NDI is going to be slightly delayed. Although when you look at my multi-view, these two inputs right here, let me move that out of the way. One of those is SDI. One of those is NDI. Can you tell me which one is which? So they're not that far off, and you shouldn't be, in my opinion, you shouldn't be bringing in audio from multiple camera sources, so that you're going to get even if it's a couple milliseconds behind, you're going to get that echo and reverb. You would need to delay the earlier one to match the later one. You can't move the later one forward. That's not a thing that happens. And as Inget says, you can still add manual delays to the analog audio. And the reason you're delaying the analog audio is because every single one of these cameras is definitely delayed, because it has to be synced inside of the switcher. So there's going to be at least a frame delay for everything as it's all being resynced inside of the switcher. This is different than a delay versus SDI versus NDI, which is my input 4 and input 5. Those are very, very close. But if I had analog audio coming in from an analog mixer, like this, of a person sitting next to me, and that was coming into my analog input, that is going to be distinctly ahead of all my cameras, which is why the audio delay is mostly needed on the analog inputs to match up with all of the digitally delayed to resync them inputs. You know, I have worked with broadcast mixers, and you have to gen lock every camera, which means, you know, if you get triax, it's one camera, but in the early days, you had a video cable coming from the camera, but you also had a sync cable running to the camera. You had two wires to get the video out and the sync to it. They could do it over one HDMI because it's bidirectional. You could do it over SDI, but you had to sync the camera to a house clock. And if you synced the switcher to the house clock, then there was no syncing going on. There was no recalibration of all the inputs to a master clock in the switcher. It just assumed that everything came in marching to the same beat. Everybody was listening to the same click track of music. And then your video is passing through instantaneously But once we got to switchers that don't have Genlock and don't have anything external to calibrate the camera to the switcher, then the switcher is basically forced to take every single input, rip it apart, and start the frame according to the clock that's inside of the switcher so that they all are reclocked to what's happening in the switcher. That takes time. And that's going to be common no matter what switcher you have. If it doesn't have Gen-locked cameras, then it's going to be doing this. That's across the board. Audio delay for video inputs. Well, hard to implement from a development perspective, I gather. Possibly. I mean, the audio is still being pulled over to the audio mixer so that you can change levels, you can apply filters and gates and things like that. So there is the possibility that one of those features, because if you go into the audio mixer, not that one, not that one. Yeah. If you go into the audio mixer, let me move that quote. And you go into input 1, you've got low cut, noise gate, compressor. So you've got effects happening on it. Like your audio effect could be delay. In addition to, you know, a noise gate and a compressor and an equalizer. Now, most of those are happening in real time. It's not requiring that there be a couple milliseconds of buffer. You know, that audio has to go somewhere for 30 milliseconds, 60 milliseconds. So that, you know, it has to sit somewhere and it gets written in here and played out from here and constantly moving across. That has to exist. And if you're going to do that with multiple channels, maybe even up to 8, then that's 8 little audio buffers that have to be created and maintained and adjusted according to your audio effects settings. Is it possible? I don't know. I don't know what the current CPU usage is of the switcher to know what overhead there might be in terms of making it possible to add an audio delay to every single one of these inputs as opposed to just the analog inputs at the end. There's no quartz generator in GoStreams, and this is essential for timecode and Genlock. Regular time obtained from NTB servers online, that's, you know, and NDI has started to talk about offering Genlock over NDI. But then, you know, you still have a TCP IP network, which is not guaranteed. TCP IP is a collision-based network, so that if that clock signal goes out and it collides with another thing, it's going to wait a moment and then resend. Well, now it's not in the same time it was when it first tried. It's already slightly delayed, you know, milliseconds, but still, your collisions cost milliseconds of delay, and milliseconds of delay is what you're trying to avoid when you try to genlock things. I mean, I understand he feels it's precise, not precise enough, exactly. But I do appreciate everybody being here for this discussion about the, oh, I'm over here, the Osee Duet-8 ISO version 2.1. A lot of good updates, good revisions, handy things that are implemented, especially with regards to mixing a mono channel of audio, duplicating it to both sides. That is something that I asked for years, you know, last year, or when I first looked at the Duet, I says, you know, being able to duplicate a mono into a dual mono is really important for somebody feeding in a wireless mic or even a single channel of XLR from house audio. Here's your cable. Well, you only sent me one. I need to know both channels. Now you would need a Y adapter and things like that. Now you can just do it in the mixer. Yay. And the updates in terms of usability with the light coding for things that are for your audio channels that are on audio follows video, what's hot, what's not, that is really good and useful as well. And I think there's still a little bit of room, a couple more tweaks that could happen. I've mentioned them in the show. I'm not going to mention them again. And I think the best feature of the Osee is its reliability. You know, as I've said before, bulletproof is a feature. And it's a feature a lot of people underestimate until they have something that's not bulletproof, and they spend a lot of time worrying and concerned, like, what if it doesn't work this time? What if my records are corrupted? There's things out there that have those problems, and I see things like that on forums. I try to do this and it says it's going to do this, but I'm not getting an accurate frame rate. I'm not getting the cadence of the video coming over USB into the computer, which is one of the bug fixes that was mentioned for this. The cadence is a little weird, to smooth that out, to deliver smooth 30 actual in a row frames per second to the receiving device is not to be underestimated, because not everything out there does that. So again, my name is Anthony Barocas. I am the Chief Gearhead here at StreamTek. I've been talking your ear off for the past hour and 20 minutes. If you want to find out more about me, you can always look me up at Stream Technology on YouTube and also Stream Technology on Facebook. Unfortunately, they don't clear themselves, but I've got this little Bluetooth remote that talks to my Director Mini. And thank you all for being here. I appreciate you here every week. And again, I won't be here next week or the week after that, because it's Christmas in the US and there's New Year's. Going to be spending time with family. So everybody who enjoys these regular weekly live shows, have fun, enjoy your family, spend some time together, and I will see you all again next year. Thanks for watching.